and differently to support our officers and to support our city. Let me start by first and foremost thanking the men and women of the New Orleans Police Department. Day in and day out, they go with a high level of professionalism as they provide top quality service to the citizens of New Orleans. So I just want to thank them for that because this is not an easy job. And this is a tough fight that we must stay the course on. We have to adjust daily, and our commitment is to the safety of those officers as well as to the safety of our citizens and visitors of New Orleans. We were and still are successful in reimagining policing in a constitutional way. Now we must be successful and creative in reimagining policing in staffing and deployment, given the challenges that we are facing today. So the last time we spoke to you about our efforts in recruitment and retention, I spoke about some changes with regards to additional officers on patrol. I just want to piggyback on that again today. A couple of weeks ago, we did some things, and this is attached to that. So starting this Sunday, as many as 75 or more officers, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, will be on patrol. That will consist of officers who are assigned to administrative positions within our districts, as well as our district investigative units. 2 weeks ago, we launched our District Assist Response Team. We call it DART, D-A-R-T. This team consists of lieutenant sergeants and patrolmen from the other bureaus, from PSAB, from PIB, from MSB, from ISB, to be on a patrol capacity once a week, and that is on a rotational basis based on the needs of the location in which they are going. Their mission is to attack the backlogs of the various districts that they are serving and lower the response times. We will also be using our traffic and K9 as well as reserves divisions. These are units that are normally in a standby position waiting to be called upon. Well, no longer will that occur. They will be already in the field in some sort of deployment status and readily available when and if needed for their primary assignments. However, we are placing them in a position where they can better support our patrol in the streets. Pivoting to some things that we are doing with regards to recruitment. As many of you have already reported, Civil Service Commission approved our request with regards to the marijuana policy. As we have mentioned before, recruits and laterals hires will still need to pass a drug test before they begin working for the New Orleans Police Department. And we expect them not to use marijuana or any other illegal narcotic while working for the New Orleans Police Department. But any questions with regards to marijuana usage prior to being hired or during the hiring process will no longer be of our interest. But however, again, that day that you are hired, that individual is hired, we are asking that they not be on drugs, they will not be permitted to be on drugs, and they cannot use drugs from their day moving forward. We also know that the pandemic and certain economic circumstances have caused financial hardships, which reflects on the credit history of certain applicants. So our policy with regards to credit scores has been reformed. Low credit ratings and things of that nature was something that had an impact on our hiring process or our ability to hire. So this is all in an effort to be in a competitive position, more of a competitive position to hire more employees with the New Orleans Police Department. So my message to those that may have been disqualified for any of these reasons in the past, I'm urging you to resubmit your application, because some of our hiring criteria has changed. Next, I want to pivot to some of our calls for service. We also will be changing the way we respond to certain calls for service. We have done an analysis. We've had our committee put together, comprised of our officers as well as employees, as well as the director of communications, when looking at what we can do differently when it comes to calls for service. And quite honestly, there are some calls that does not necessarily require a physical police response, such as medical calls, forgery calls, thefts, some thefts, loose animals, Auto accidents on private property could be handled through other means. That's part of our alternative police report unit. Can take some reports online or over the phone. So in speaking with that APR, speaking of the APR, it is currently staffed by officers who are assigned in a limited duty capacity. So at any given moment, that officer can return back to work, based on their status. What we're going to do and what we're pivoting to, what we're going to be doing in the future is hiring civilian police intake specialists. And we're looking right now to hire as many as 25 so we can have an around-the-clock staffing of those telephones to take the reports, around-the-clock staffing and monitoring the online reports. With that being said, we have also identified as many as 50 to 75 additional new civilian positions to support our officers. And the goal of all of this is to make our officers feel safe so that they can make our citizens and visitors feel safe. This is also to reduce some of the workload currently placed on our patrol and district personnel. But more importantly, this is designed to reduce response times and address the backlogs in which we have in some of our districts. So we're still not where we are. We want to be more intentional when we speak to our code, to our high priority calls and response times. We're slightly down to about 11-minute response time on priority calls, but it is our hope through these changes and more to come in the future, we reduce our response towards a more acceptable level. We'll also be seeing, of course, change this weekend at the Public Integrity Bureau. Keith Sanchez will be taken over as the leader, as the Deputy Superintendent of the Public Integrity Bureau. We announced this a couple of weeks ago, as Chief Westbrook will be transitioning to a role of a project manager for the consent decree and assisting us with the consent decree, amongst other things that this department would need assistance with, and she will be working through the CAO's office. I just want to publicly acknowledge and thank her again for the hard work that she has done and the dedication she has had to this department. So finally, if you are looking for a job, we are hiring. We are definitely hiring. So I urge you to look at joinnopd.org. Look us up on LinkedIn. Look us up on Indeed. You can look up New Orleans Police Department on any of those platforms. And with all of our civilianization positions or civilian positions that we are now created, you can also look those up on NOLA.gov/job. And I just want to remind everyone, especially you, the media, that we will have a award ceremony on October 5th, in which we'll be recognizing as many as 68 officers for an outstanding job that they have done. So again, these changes that I have outlined today will go into effect this Sunday. We will continue to review. We will continue to assess. That is a part of our process and working to be a better department and working to make our city safer. Our goal at the end of the day is to do just that, making our city safer. So a lot of things that are going on, despite popular belief, we have a lot of things that are going on that is happening. And unfortunately, there's a process to everything that we do. So in doing that, as we get more, I will be messaging more. This is a daunting task. We have some serious challenges that we're facing as a profession, not necessarily specifically as a department, but as a profession. And we just have to adjust accordingly on a daily basis. So with that, Gary, prepared to answer any questions.
Start far in with the advocates.
So you said we want to get response time to a more acceptable
Level?
What would that look like?
So, I mean, of course, we want to be there. Right now, we're at 11 minutes. I would like to be less than that. I mean, exactly what? I mean, I don't know the exact number, but definitely less than 11 minutes. I think we can get down. We can get that down to some single digits. I think that would be more. Our public would appreciate that better.
Issue?
As far as the civilian recruiting, what kind of training or processes will they have to undergo?
So, I think that's a great question. So, and that's something that we actually. Chief Williams has been working on just that, putting that together. So with our police investigative specialists, our police intake specialists, Of course, they will be taking reports over the phone. Some will actually be doing investigative work, meaning detective work, in some assignments. So we are in the process of putting together a curriculum at the academy so that these civilian hires will be able to have some training before they are actually put in these positions.
WWL.
Yeah, will there be any specific districts like such as Fifth and Seventh, where you will be concentrating on these extra boots on the ground? And secondly, for those officers that have hit detective status that are now returning to the street, will they lose their 10% bump in pay?
So let's try to answer the first question. Every district will feel the impact or see an increase with regards to that. Now, our rotation, our DART initiative is going to move from district to district, but every district is pushing more personnel out into the field. When it comes to the investigative units or investigators within the district, they will not be losing their pay because they still will be investigators. However, they'll be working in a patrol capacity at periods of times to support. Every week, you're going to have investigators on the platoon working as patrolmen, but then they're going to go back to their assignment maybe the next week. It's going to be on a rotational basis.
So they won't lose their 10%?
They will not, because
on patrol?
they will not lose their 10% because they're going to still be in that assignment, that detective assignment.
Roxanne.
Chief, you said about the civilian, positions, will they be answering calls, some of the calls that do not need, a police officer
So
to respond?
it is our hope to, in some instances, some calls, like, for example, I'll give you an example. What we're hoping to put together is through the APR unit. As we take calls or reports over the phone, there may be some evidence that must be collected with that call. We want to have investigators, civilian investigators, to go out and collect that evidence instead of an officer having to go out there and collect that evidence. We're speaking to right now we work with on-scene services in which where they cannot issue a citation on a traffic accident. Maybe this is where we can utilize our civilians that would be embedded in the traffic division where they can be deputized to go out and issue a summons. Not deputized where they're armed, but deputized to the point where they can be given the authority to issue citations during these report or these traffic investigations.
One more question, 12-hour shifts, continue?
Yes, 12. We will remain on 12-hour shifts. I mean, that's just where we are. And I mean, honestly, if you look across the country, it seems to be like the best practice or the common practice right now, given what this profession is facing right now.
Gino.
At the most recent graduation, how many graduated officers?
Next week, we will have 18 graduates on September 30th. We just started a class, launched a class earlier this month of 12 recruits.
Paul.
And Chief, as you bring on more civilian help for this department, is there any concern that when we hit special events like Mardi Gras and Essex, where you generally would tap folks, officers that would be in those positions to come help out, do you run the risk of not having enough officers because you're relying on civilians to staff these major events? Is that a concern?
So that's why we have partners at the local, state, and federal level. We already have began these conversations to see how they can assist in a lot of these major special events. But even with that being said, civilians can actually work some of these events. I mean, we just have to strategically place them in situations in which they won't be in harm's way. But we have utilized civilians for certain traffic control assignments in the past, that is, and we continue to do that now.
Anyone else?
All right, thank you all again.
Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks. You good?
You could just find, you can contact.
Yes. Yeah, Aaron actually is